Hey 7A. So we learned today about asexual and sexual reproduction. We got a couple of examples of those things, but you know, they were kind of exotic, and it was difficult to kind of identify with these flat things that were on the screen. I'm going to try and walk around my house and show you that there are some sexual reproducers and asexual reproducers right here in my backyard and my front yard, just like at yours. First thing you're going to notice is that my lawn looks so lush and thick. I got a compliment the other day. Oh, you're the guy with the thick lawn. It's not as great as it looks because it's got runners. So it turns into a lush lawn, but it also gets in all of my flower beds. Check this out. So like if I come over here to where I planted these native plants, they're so beautiful, but I got this issue where the grass keeps popping up in the middle of my mulch. Stuff drives me crazy because it comes right from the lawn and runs across the lawn. So just look at this runner, right? It's sending up all of its own little shoots. Each of these would be its own grass plant. That is reproduction without having to make a seed, without having to have an offspring made by sexual reproduction. Okay, so that's asexual reproduction, and there's plenty of it happening around my house because look, it's all over the place. I can't get it all. I want to, but I can't get it all. How about sexual reproduction? Well, interestingly, I got some honeysuckle here. Now, this is not like the honeysuckle you're used to seeing at your house probably. The honeysuckle that we have around our places usually is white, and you pluck it and you suck on it. This has got the nectar in it too, but this is a native honeysuckle. I think it's beautiful, and the hummingbirds like it. It's got a really long, fluted kind of a flower, and the hummingbirds come in and they stick their long beak straight up inside there because there's this delicious nectar that they want to drink up in there. Well, these pieces right here on the outside of the flower actually have pollen on them, so when he gets in there, his beak goes all the way up inside of it, and his feathers like catch some of the pollen, and then he'll fly to a different plant and he'll stick that beak up in there to get some more nectar, and the pollen brushes off on the inside of this flower and deposits that pollen. Well, the pollen is sperm, and there's an egg inside of that flower, and when he puts the pollen in there on the egg, it fertilizes the egg. That's sexual reproduction right here in a plant. Sometimes we want our plants to have runners. This is a bush that I planted. Here's the original bush that I planted a couple of years ago, and if you look, it has grown some runners out of it, and it's turning into a larger bush. I'm actually excited because I'm going to take this flower bed and I'm going to edge it out here and remove some of this grass and make the mulch bigger, because that bush is going to get much wider and take over this area, and I think it makes me very excited about that. So that was asexual reproduction happening on these plants right here. So in one of my other videos I showed you guys how I was having a problem with water coming down my yard, and it was getting all blocked up right here by my shed, because I built this shed, and I put it right in the spot where the water needs to be able to come down my yard and go across and then out into my driveway, which is over there. I dammed it up with this giant shed that I built here. So I fixed the problem by digging a huge, like a moat almost, around the shed. It was deep, and I filled it full of gravel so the water can still go, and it goes all the way around and all the way around to the other side and out into my driveway. Well, I had all this soil. What was I going to do with it? So I built myself a raised garden, and look at what happened. So I made this lovely little garden, and I thought I'll have a few small tomato plants in it, and maybe I'll have a few tomatoes. But what I ended up with was this gargantuan Oh my gosh, took the whole place over. Can't even get into it. It is so solidly filled with tomato plants. I'll bring you over here and show you. This is where I put this lovely gate, right? Made it out of a pallet. And so you can get into the garden, right? Well, this is about as far as you can get into my garden. So I'm now inside of the garden, but only just barely. And my tomatoes are in there. Unfortunately, I've also got this metal caging in here. I don't know if you can see this, but there's like a metal cage. So I can't even like separate it to get into there. But the point is, these little yellow flowers on my tomato plants, that is the sex organ for sexual reproduction for a tomato plant. And something is going to pollinate that. I don't know if it blows or if the pollen blows into another flower and fertilizes that egg, or if a bee does it for it. But I haven't noticed a whole lot of bees here, so I'm guessing that just happens with the wind. Anyway, what you end up with is tomatoes. And tomatoes, see if I can grab one. Tomatoes, I have a whole bunch to choose from, is what the reproduction, this one's split. That's all right. So this is the offspring. And if I open this, inside it's got seeds, right? Those seeds are the offspring. That is a future tomato plant. This is how it reproduces. Now, it's pretty smart because a tomato plant will actually, it's got edible seeds. So when an animal eats this, he'll go somewhere and poop it out, and then the poop's got the seeds in it, and it plants the tomato plant someplace else. It's how the tomato plant spreads its offspring. Pretty cool. So here's my garden, right? My little puny squished up garden that's overgrown. I should have really spread it out a lot more, and I will do that next spring. But behind my house is a cornfield, and this cornfield is impressive. I'm telling you, corn grows like, I don't know, it's gotta be 8 feet tall, maybe 9 feet tall. I tried to grow corn one time in a garden, and I put the corn plants too far away from each other. I don't know if you know, but you kind of have to plant corn really close to each other. So you can see the seeds are were planted about 8 inches. One plant to the next, to the next, to the next. Corn plants are really close to each other. And then the rows are maybe a foot between each other as you're looking through these rows. And the reason I found out, when I planted my corn, I planted it a little bit further away from each other, thinking that they needed room to spread out. The truth is, corn can't even grow and make corn if it's not close to each other. These are where the pollen is. Apparently, and I understand this from some farmers, these pieces here have to be able to like brush against each other in the wind, and when they do, they transfer the pollen to each other, and that somehow makes the corn grow. So you're gonna have this lovely ear of corn. This is not mine, so I'm not gonna pick it, but inside of here is gonna be some corn. I don't think this is sweet corn. I think it's actually feed corn. So they're gonna let it die and dry on the stalk, and then they'll come by and they'll harvest it from there. But that corn is also sexual reproduction, because the pollen and the seed and everything are a part of the plant. So this is a garden that I have next to my screen porch, and it has some flowers here that are butterfly flowers, but you don't see the flower anymore. This is where the flower used to be. Now what's left is this seed thing here, and when this dries, the seeds will crack open and blow away. I'm gonna try and capture those seeds because I wanna take this to school. You should see the butterflies on this. The butterflies go crazy for this plant in the early, I guess in the springtime. So we might get a chance to see some of those butterflies if we plant this at school. So I'm gonna try and harvest some. But the seeds, that's the offspring from this plant. The flower was a sexual organ, that allowed sexual reproduction to take place. I'm kind of bummed because yesterday, or 2 days ago, I actually saw some monarchs on it. So it must be a variety of milkweed, and I didn't even know it, because monarchs will only use milkweeds. I don't see them. I'm hoping that somebody didn't come by and eat those monarch caterpillars. It is possible. Shame on them, because they're going to get sick, because monarchs are poisonous because the food that they eat is poisonous. This is some more of the beautiful honeysuckle. See, that's a pretty flower, isn't it? Somebody at Southampton built this bird box. They were going to throw them away, and so I saved them, and now I've got this bird box for bluebirds. And in the springtime, there was a family of bluebirds in here, a male and a female that attracted each other, and then they set up a home inside of it. The hole is supposedly the right size for that. That would be sexual reproduction, because it takes a male and a female. They have a brood of eggs in there, and out come the little babies. We actually have a problem with a pest bird around here called the house sparrow, and they came in and killed the baby bluebirds and built their nest on top of it before I found out that they were in there. They're a nasty bird. At Christmas time, we like to have hollyberry bushes as decorations. Well, I've got a giant holly here. This is a holly tree, and if you notice, there are no berries on it. And I think the reason that there are no berries on it, and I may be wrong about this, we can look it up. I think this is a male holly bush. It doesn't make offspring. There are male plants sometimes and female plants. And I believe that this one, since it never has any berries, is a male. Now over here, I might have his mate, because over here, I've got a holly bush. And even though they're not ripe like they are in the wintertime, you can see it's working on some berries right here. See those guys? They're green right now, but they will be bright red around Christmas time. And this is an evergreen, so it'll be beautiful for Christmas. This is the female, and over there is the male.